I noticed the other day that Smallville season 10 has finally come on to Netflix UK. And it's been a few years since I actually saw season 10. And for the most part, I thought it was very impressive. But there were a few areas that I thought were really lacking. One of which was the main fight between Clark Kent and Darkseid in the barn, on Clark Kent's farm, in which Darkseid had possessed the corpse of the Earth 2 Lionel Luthor, and the fight essentially consisted of this Lionel Luthor Darkseid creature just throwing Clark, and Clark going into I guess his memories before he just charged flew straight into this zombie Lionel Luthor Darkseid and just obliterated it, whatever it was. I presumed from that Darkseid wasn't dead, but just floated off to return at a later date. I think Darkseid was a big area of season 10 that didn't really capitalise on the potential that it could have done. I think that they should have hired an actor that's not particularly well known, relatively stocky, has probably about 6 foot tall, give or take. And I would have had him maybe black messy black hair, spiky hair, but I'd have had him wear an Italian grey suit and blue shirts. Other times I'd have had him wear blue suits with a grey shirt to stick with Darkseid's colours, and at points I'd have had his face go rocky like Darkseid, like the Darkseid of the comics or the animated series. And to some degree it would have been a bit of a throwback to Bizarro from season 7. One scene I think I would have had to have had would have been, in terms of Darkseid's first appearance, he walking through a Metropolis museum in which there is a speech being done on dictators to show that he's doing research on the dictators of this world and looking at men with a similar mindset, as it were. I probably would have had it as well that I would have had him wear red sunglasses, very subtle red sunglasses, as a hint to the red eyes he has. But a bit of a difference from the comic and all of the cartoons, I would have had his Omega beams as actually apocalyptic technology behind his eyes. I would have had these weapons inserted in, and the technology is advanced to that place that laser beams can come out of his eyes without actually affecting his vision. So the apocalyptic technology would be quite advanced in some areas. We would see a demonstration of these eyes when he is, I don't know, I think I would have heard him probably crossing a road or going through a crowd and someone bumps into him and he pulls down his sunglasses, his red shades, and the camera just follows the man. You don't actually have the lasers firing straight out of his eyes, but you have them almost like a homing device. And then because they glide, they follow. And I would then I think I would have had the suddenly just out of nowhere. I think I maybe would have had the little devices. Maybe the devices fly out of his eyes actually. Very subtle little devices. Like that could maybe turn invisible and follow them, and then bam, in the back. So maybe it wouldn't actually be Darkseid has the power himself, but actually he's been given it by the technology in, I would suggest, an advanced operation. So these devices would fly out of his eyes and shoot his prey in the back. This would definitely be something that you'd operate later on in a clash with Clark Kent after a disagreement. I also couldn't help noticing the apocalypse wasn't even used at all. You didn't see any of the planet really. I think the planet came towards the Earth and Superman pushes it away. I know what they were going for. that Superman's ability to push a planet away in the comics or lift the planet. I would have preferred it had they gone down the route or route of shooting a few cleverly selected scenes, so maybe seen in a cave, in a laboratory, a strange looking laboratory, or in a mountain, and or just carefully shot areas of Canada, cities that we've not seen, to show that this is Apocalypse. And I think they probably should have showed actually a little bit of attention to Apocalypse in terms of a city, actually putting in a city, apocalyptic city that's meant to be the most popular city on the planet, and this is the home of Darkseid. Might perhaps mentioned countries as well, or how the planet's split up, because there was nothing done on Apocalypse really. But whatever we do see, I would have preferred it. I would have thought it would have been better for them to move away from that Hellfire image as well. So I would have made Apocalypse look I wouldn't have had Earth turn into Apocalypse. That's for starters. If we were going to see these scenes with Apocalypse, maybe the best way to describe it would be the Apocalypse City should look like the city in Highlander 2: The Quickening. Not a great film, but I think in some ways years beyond its time. Another area that I think would have been interesting would have been before Darkseid should appear on like a Kryptonian technology version of Skype, in which he appears to Darkseid, Granny Goodness, and Gordon Godfrey, who I wouldn't have had be in possession. I'd have had Godfrey be. He is what he is. He's lived on Earth for a while. He's integrated in society. The same with Darkseid as the club promoter, and Granny Goodness in the nunnery, or whatever the case was. I would also have introduced, maybe for an episode or two, a big investor of Luthor Corp, and this would have been John Calabac, actually Calabac Darkseid's son, who would be quite a manipulative individual in his own right, and I would probably have had him be killed pretty quickly. Another area I thought was high risk, but it could pay off, would have been Earth 2. I'm not sure I'd have changed Earth 2, but I would probably have had let the Earth 2 Lex Luthor be shown in flashback. So I would have shown Lex Luthor wearing his red robes as a tribute to how Luthor first appeared in the comics. I would have shown him be killed by Clark Luthor, the Ultraman, except I had a problem with him being Clark Luthor. It made no sense for him to be called Clark Luthor. Clark Kent was found by the Kents and named Clark by the Kents. Lionel Luthor wouldn't call him Clark. I would have him called Hank Luthor as a nod to the cyborg Superman. I also would have introduced in Earth 2 a character. I'd probably call him let's call him Gregory Wilson, just for a name of the top of it. And I would essentially have introduced him as a anti-Lionel Luthor, Earth 2 Lionel Luthor, and this would have been Bloodsport. I think that could have been interesting. I probably would have shown a few more scenes as well in Earth 2 that was in Smallville, just to get used to Earth 2, but not insofar so much that you get overloaded with locations, so it takes away what you're being shown with Apocalypse. I think I would have stuck with the resurrection of Lex Luthor's storyline. I did like that. I did like the fact that Earth 2 Lionel Luthor was doing a deal with Darkseid. But the only difference is I wouldn't have just mentioned Darkseid. I would have shown them actually doing a deal. I would have also shown Darkseid have a meet with Major Zod. In fact, if anything, I think it would have been very interesting to have seen Major Zod and General Zod from the earlier seasons combined, and maybe a little sort of a mix of the personalities between them, because I couldn't help noticing they never really referenced the battle that Clark and General Zod had when Zod was in Lex's body. I think that it would definitely have been intriguing for fans to have had that presented to them again. It just adds a bit of continuity, doesn't it? Now, in terms of the fight between Clark and Darkseid, I wouldn't have it in Metropolis at all. I would have had it in Apocalypse. I would have had it in a fancy building. It would have been a fancy building. It's a temple, I think, but really fancy building. But I wouldn't have it look tatty as such, but I probably would have had fire pumping out. I would have stuck with that, with the Apocalypse's fire element there. And I would have had Clark's first suit be Apocalyptian armour, actually, which is probably a tribute to the comic. And I would have had Clark carve the S in and take on Darkseid in a fist fight, not dissimilar to how he took on Major Zod before expelling him to the Phantom Zone. And I would have had Clark actually in his armour defeat Darkseid, and I'd have had Darkseid almost not be killed, but in a state of contemplation, embarrassed, shamed, but respects Clark. Yet not to the point that he wouldn't become a adversary further down the line. Now, we've already introduced John Calabac, who will be resting in peace by the end of the series. I like Darkseid's brother. His name escapes me right now. But I think Darkseid's brother would be very interesting to have. At the very end of the series, we get a scene of Lex in the White House, and his vice president is actually Darkseid's brother. We know it's Darkseid's brother because I think there should be a room. There actually should be paintings in Darkseid's temple that gives us the image that this is his brother, and they don't look alike. Well, I guess in Darkseid's human form maybe, but they generally don't look alike. I'd have had his brother with the red hair, as he does in the comics. In a sense, almost like a reflection of Lex, but Lex will be bald. And I think that the bow of Orion, I'm backtracking here, but I think the bow of Orion would have been great to defeat Darkseid. So that would explain how Clark manages to defeat Darkseid this early on. The bow of Orion, but we don't see Orion. I think this would be a family member we do leave out. And I think that I would be happy to end Smallville without you seeing Superman in the cloak, the cape. Sorry, the suit. I think the CGI suit would work. So the best we get to see is either the black, the vest that he wears, or the black in season 9, which I thought was quite Batman-like. And in this case, the armour that he fights Darkseid in, but we won't see him properly in it. So you wouldn't see Tom Welling properly in it. So Lois Lane, I think they were right to keep most of that storyline. Although I think the touch with Darkseid being into BDSM and bondage whips is something that they could keep in Club de Sade. I thought that was one of the best scenes of season 10. It's not a fetish of mine, but I think it was very good in terms of a very, very interesting element to the Darkseid character that they just seem to ignore later down the line. Just seem to completely go off the ball with it. So hopefully this isn't too long, but this would just be some concepts that I would put into season. I would have, put into season 10 of Smallville, because it just seemed like a bit of a mixed up mess where we didn't really get to enjoy Darkseid. I mean, I don't think any viewer really watched Smallville hoping to see a quick CGI Darkseid, a possession and cosmic smoke. I don't think that's really what they were anticipating with a Superman story. So, well, thanks for listening everyone, and good night.